Well, thank you everybody for joining today. This is our Frontline Managed Services webinar. Today we're going to be going through what downtime truly costs a law firm and how partnering with the right NOC can help protect your billable time, reduce your downtime, and ultimately lower your risk. So if we could go on to the next slide here, please. All right, so we'll start off with just a brief introduction. My name is Joe Kahn. I am a strategic account manager and co-lead of our client services team here at Frontline. Brendan, you want to do a quick intro for us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. I am Brendan DeMeyer. I am a director of technology in our client services team, and yeah, working with Joe.
Very good. For those of you who may not already know, just a quick background on who Frontline is as an MSP. So Frontline Managed Services, we're one of the leaders in legal specific managed service providing. We are award-winning, nationally recognized, and our business is segmented into a few core service offerings. First and foremost, we have a managed IT services division. That's the part that both Brendan and I come from. Essentially, you can think of this as typically your outsourced IT. We are your IT team. We are your IT department. We also do have an AI-powered enterprise help desk. This is more of a for your firms with internal IT. You need a little bit of additional support. This is the type of offering you'd be looking for. And then, of course, we have our managed financial operations division as well. So moving on from here, looking at the agenda for today, we are going to go over what a NOC actually does, what a network operations center is. We will also discuss what Frontline looks at as more of an evolution in this space. A network operations center is something that's been around for many, many years, but we'll talk to you about how it's actively shifting into more of an enterprise operation center model and kind of the differences between the two. We'll talk about why any of this even matters. Ultimately, everything we're going to talk about today has some impact on your downtime and the cost of that. So we'll discuss all of that. We will also look at the gap that many firms have, even ones that have an MSP partner that they work with. There's still a gap that you find oftentimes when it's not the right NOC partnership. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, from there, we'll go into how a NOC can help protect your billable time and then even become a business enabler for certain strategic clientele partnerships, things like government and other entities like that. After that, we'll shift into more about how Frontline specific NOC is set up and then how an in-house model differs from more of a fragmented support model and the benefits of both of those models and differences. After that, we'll start wrapping up and offer up a free NOC consultation and then a quick Q&A. But from there, Brendan, I'll pass it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. So to answer the initial question of what a NOC actually does is that a traditional NOC really takes a look at your technology operating environment and make sure that it is running when it's supposed to be running and doing what it needs to do. And that could be across your servers, your networks, backups and storage, your your endpoint, meaning your laptops, desktops, your workstations, those sorts of things. It also takes a look at your patching and security, and making sure that that's aligned. One of the things that it also does is it becomes a listening point for the notifications and the alerts that actually come out of these operational systems, because almost every technology tool or platform has ways of letting us know that something is wrong. It just depends on who and how it's listening. So the NOC can become that point of entry for those alerts. It can also be used traditionally to address after hours issues, but not only issues, but planned maintenance. What we also want to be using NOC for, and this is a bit of the evolution that we'll speak to, is performance trends and uptime reporting and how that benefits your business going forward. And when you think about a NOC, it's going to be the thing that's answering some of those questions that you might never ask, like when last were your servers patched? What versions of software are you running? Does this server or does this appliance need a reboot? Is this piece of network equipment actually delivering the way it needs to in your environment? And those are sorts of the questions that you tend to not ask, and they only become a problem when they break. And then these questions get asked and no one knows. So the NOC can be a real point of aggregation for all that to ensure that we're looking after this critical piece of business equipment, and B, that we're making sure it's future proof. If
And
we can move
I
to the
know
next slide, please.
we'll
Yeah,
talk a little more about some of the alerting, Brendan, but we have lots of examples, real world examples of how a proper network operations center can identify issues like internet issues. We had one recently, Brendan. You and I did actually.
yeah,
One of our clients had an internet outage middle of the night. Our NOC was able to identify, find out what the estimated time of resolution was. It was quite long at that point for the internet provider. And they were able to alert the team at the firm prior to them arriving in the office, which saved them countless hours of wasted time. So all of this is stuff that we'll go over more in depth today.
absolutely, absolutely. And that is where we want to talk about the evolution of the NOC in the traditional sense, making sure that everything is up and running and it's working, moving from a NOC to an enterprise operations center. And the thinking sort of needs to change with the evolution of technology, purely because we're working in environments and on platforms that are a lot more robust and reliable than they used to be. If we take a look at cloud and we take a look at just the type of hardware that's been rolled out, we're moving away from, hey, is this working? Because there was genuinely real risk of it not working, to more is, how well is it working? How well is it enabled? And what's it doing for us? And what we want to consider in those sorts of scenarios is potential scenario planning. Like Joe mentioned, we had an internet outage. Um, we were able to activate our NOC capability to work with the vendor, figure out what's happening, and do scenario planning for how this is going to go into the next business day without causing too many interruptions. So in an enterprise operations center, we want that to be a source of truth and a data-driven platform to help you guide business decisions. Another simple example of that could be, you know, if you're working in a cloud environment, and cloud is typically a consumption model. We want to be able to identify these trends that say, hey, these are your peak periods, these are your quiet periods, spin up, spin down, scale out as we need to, and make sure that that works into your budget, it works into your costing, and we can potentially save money on infrastructure costs as we go along. Or another potential scenario is you approach us and say, we've got a new practice area coming up, and we're bringing that into the firm, and we need to find out, are we right sized for this? Are we ready for this? How much technology investment are we going to be able to need? And we'll be able to say, well, based on the current trends and the current analysis, you're fit for purpose, you're right sized, or hey, this is where we're going to have to make some modifications and make some adjustments and bulk up your technology platforms. So the enterprise NOC is really about a business planning tool as well, as much as it is making sure the environment is working. If we can move to the next slide, please.
Perfect. So one of the things that we talked a little bit about at the start of this call, but downtime is ultimately the crux of all of this. The reason this conversation is happening, the reason network operations centers exist. It's not just an IT problem or an inconvenience. It's when you are down, the delays ripple across the staff. It's not just your attorneys, it's the paralegals, the clerks, everyone. And ultimately that leads to lost revenue. Repeated disruptions obviously can cause issues with your clientele, many of which I'm sure you have had years and years of building those relationships. So every time you're down or have issues that are occurring that impacts your clients and impacts your attorneys, you're losing trust with the people that need it the most. As I'm sure you all know, in law firms, technology downtime, it's directly impacting the firm's ability to work, to capture that revenue. You can see on our graphic here, over $9,000 per hour is the average cost of downtime to a firm. And as with most things that we'll discuss today, you'll see the benefit of having a more proactive model as opposed to a reactive model. It's significantly more cost effective for the firm if we can be more proactive and identify issues before they become outages and major problems. So one question that I always ask our clients when we're discussing this type of thing is, what would the business impact be for you if you had a significant outage? What would it look like if it was one day? What would it look like if it was one week? These are very real and sometimes kind of scary questions to ask and to identify, but they are really important in figuring out how to best leverage your IT budget mixed with the acceptance of a certain level of risk by not doing so. So it's an interesting topic to discuss, and I encourage you all to ask your team that.
All right, and what we want to take a look at is the gap and the two key words that we understand here is proactive versus reactive. Um, the scenario that you never want to be in any business, let alone a law firm, is the situation where the users are reporting major outages, where your own internal employees, attorneys, paralegals, they're the ones phoning and saying, this is seriously down, everyone can't work. Ideally, you need to know about that beforehand. Um, but it also extends to things like proactive maintenance, because if we have the NOC that understands your busy periods and understands those trends, we can schedule the annoying maintenance tasks that need to be done. They have to be done as critical, but you can't find time during the day to get them done, and that then they get ignored. Whereas we can work with that on a schedule that works for the firm, but also not one that's disruptive to us because this is what we do. I mean, we run it 24/7. Um, and I think what it also does is when you have a focused knock like with Frontline working in conjunction with an internal IT team, you get to shift the focus from firefighting for them to actual proactive business enablement from a technology platform. They want to be doing projects that make the firm run better and not just be spending their time keeping things running and making sure nothing's broken. So I think that really maximizes your investment on an internal technology team. And slowly but surely, the users become the last line of detection, not the first. For big major issues, we'll know it before you are. We're the ones warning you and saying, hey, this is what you're walking into tomorrow morning. These are the options that you have. This is what we're doing about it. Whereas, hey, everyone's here now, but we can't work. So what do we do? And that's the major difference between the proactive and the reactive response. And the knock is a big step towards proactivity. Can we move to the next slide, please? But as I've also alluded to previously, there's not just the knock that keeps your business running, it is something that can potentially enable business. There's a lot of scenarios that there would be regulations around um, security, data governance, IT practices, and those sorts of things that would you would need to prove as a firm to a potential client or in a potential practice area. And having a knock ticks a lot of those boxes from a data governance and security and risk perspective. And that could be with government, it could be in specific practice areas, it could just be a customer that is particularly fussy about how they work with their data or how their data gets worked with. And we understand that law firms work with a lot of sensitive information. I think almost exclusively sensitive information. So what we need to understand is having a knock, making sure that your technology platforms and systems are robust allows you and gives you the confidence to approach these clients and approach these industries knowing that you're covered. And another small potential win here is that if you're shopping for cyber insurance or you have cyber insurance, it's another nice, really big check box that says, hey, we take this seriously, and it could either increase your level of coverage or it could lower your costs, and it could give you a lot more comfort in your position around cybersecurity and the insurance. So it's not just a sunken cost in making your business run. It's not something you have to do, but it is something that could potentially enable better business for you. Thank you. Next slide, please. And I think what really, really speaks to this is that we are protecting billable time. We're looking at things like catching backups that fail and rerunning them on time so that we know that if something really, really catastrophic had to happen, we can get you back up and running to a point in time. We're looking at things that really, really hinder performance, like a storage block on a server or a workstation that causes it to be unresponsive or unavailable. Um, we are monitoring performance and establishing, the required baselines and working towards making them getting there. And then we know this is the line that shouldn't be crossed. This is where the performance needs to be at, and we can make sure that it runs. And specifically looking at a response plan around service failures. We can't guarantee that things don't break because they will break. This will happen from time to time, but we can give you the opportunity, the NOC can give you an opportunity to respond appropriately, and minimize that downtime. With this also, we start seeing repeated trends and repeated failures, and understanding that this then becomes something that we have to proactively go and fix permanently. And
Yeah.
lastly, and I can't emphasize this more enough, is that when you have an internal IT team, you want them to be focusing on the things that matter to your business, not just the things that keep it running. Sorry, Joe, it sounded like you wanted to say something there.
No, no problem. Yeah, what you're touching on here, Brendan, is really important. Particularly the repeat warnings being identified. We like to say we can find a squeaky wheel in a lot of the data that comes out of our network operations center. And while that may seem not that important on the surface, when something keeps happening over and over again and it equates to lost time, that becomes pretty impactful for your users and ultimately for your clients.
Absolutely. And we've also seen that if it starts happening for one user, chances are it's going to escalate. So we want to fix those quickly.
Very often that is the case. Yes. Now, shifting a little bit to how Frontline's NOC is set up specifically, we operate what we consider to be a follow the sun model. It is essentially 24/7 coverage across multiple time zones. We've got technicians and engineers and offices on 3 different continents. So we've always got someone around that's a part of this team. Now, we have thousands of NOC alerts that get resolved every single week. And couple of the more important elements that I would look at is that we are 100% dedicated to law firms specifically. We are only in the legal vertical. What that does for you is that enables us to have specialists that are fully knowledgeable and in tune with your legal specific applications. You can look at a generic NOC. I'm sure they'll have the ability to do Office 365, mailbox rule checking and verification, things like that. But are they knowledgeable on Latera? Are they knowledgeable on iManage, on Net Documents? There's so many legal specific applications that our team has to be knowledgeable on, and that's one of the things that really differentiates Frontline's NOC compared to some of our more generic NOCs that you can see out there. One thing as well that I would focus on here too is the direct remediation path that Frontline operates under. We are not just alerting you to a problem. Our team is actively trying to resolve the problem, even in the overnight hours. Brendan, I think you alluded to that a little bit earlier, how much of what our NOC is doing is done in the after hours timeframe. For example, we have patch windows with every one of our NOC clients that they know from this time at night to this time in the morning, leave your computers on. Oftentimes it's 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it may be, because our team is going to go in there and make sure that your operating systems are patched with the latest security updates, that your browsers are updated, your legal applications are updated, all as possible. So very important to have a more full service network operations center that can proactively patch, but also remediate issues as they arise. And again, leading to a reduced downtime for your workers as they get into the office in the morning.
And just elaborating on that is, and Joe, you mentioned that you might have a NOC. There might be an MSP that you're working with, and they do this. And we found that in a lot of these scenarios, the NOC is potentially an outsourced function of that MSP. So they have backed it off to another firm or vendor, or you might be trying to establish your own internal NOC. And there's some metrics that you need to understand about that. If you want to set up a NOC and you want to monitor your environment 24/7 in-house, the human capital costs become excessive, in terms of you need 2 people in shifts of 3. So that's six staff that you need to have in place to keep an eye on things, assuming that that's enough people. And then the tooling and the platforms that go into that as well are expensive and they require expertise. So that means that your internal IT team or your internal technology team is looking after another piece of software or systems that don't necessarily add enough value to your business to do them yourself. And that is a decision that could mean that, hey, we're not taking on new attorneys, we're not taking on paralegals because we've got to keep this NOC going. So we'd like to take the stress out of that. And even if you have an outsourced NOC where it might be with a more generic, they'll be able to look at your servers and your network and those sorts of things, but they wouldn't necessarily have that industry-specific expertise because we are legal focused. Chances are that a lot of the issues that you may experience, we've seen before, we've resolved before, but we also have very, very good and tight relationships with the software providers and the platform providers in the legal space, the likes of Unitary or iManage, all those vendors, we deal with them directly. So we know if there is an issue and we have to escalate to them, we know how to talk to them in a way that resolves it the quickest. We know which questions to ask and answer. And that is a very good reduction in troubleshooting time on our side. We also then have very well-established processes to escalate to our engineering team because it's not just the NOC that operates, but if this needs more expertise, there is who do we call? We know who to call. We get them in. We have established processes, and we've done this and we've proven this quite a bit. And then lastly, one of the things that we focus on as well is that visibility and that reporting that comes out of the NOC in terms of what your systems are looking like. You know, what your busy periods are, what your quiet periods are, um, what is that investment in technology really getting for you at the end of the day? And it allows us to help guide you in the direction of, hey, look at this, make these changes, and this will add this value. So having Frontline's knock in a legal perspective gives a lot of advantages, and it really takes the pain and pressure out of trying to establish this yourself.
Absolutely. What I would also focus on here as you were looking at NOC partners, obviously we described a good bit about what we do, but we have what we consider to be essentially non-negotiables, things that you really want to focus on if you are looking to partner with a NOC. So we've talked about a few of them already. In-house, fully controlled. That's essentially saying it's a one-stop shop where you're getting top to bottom service, one responsible party, which is really important, especially if an issue were to occur. You want to be able to have reporting from them after the incident, a post-incident report, essentially, to be able to say what happened from the start to the finish. Having one partner that's controlling all of that is very beneficial there, because you're eliminating some of the areas of issue where you might not be able to get reporting as accurate or as cleanly as you'd like. We've talked quite a bit about legal specific experience. That's pretty important. Brendan, you touched on the escalation model that we have. One thing I do want to
Yeah.
highlight, that escalation model can be customized to your firm. So, for example, Brendan and I, the clients that we have in our segment of the business are largely ones that we are their IT. It's not always the case. Some do have internal IT as well, but when we are the IT, the escalation path goes straight through Frontline. It's a straight line. It starts at the NOC and then it goes into our escalated resources. And of course, you get alerts as needed throughout that process. But if you have your own internal IT and you're partnering with us specifically for the network operations center, that escalation path will include your internal IT team as well. So they aren't just completely eliminated if you don't want them to be. They're still a part of the process. They're able to help participate, but this eases some of the burden off of them when you're asking for them to essentially be available at any hour of the day. Because again, much of what this team is doing is after hours. So you see that quite a bit. The amount of knock alerts that we all wake up to as team members at Frontline here, they're quite a few that the team has been working on throughout the night. Now, again, we've talked about proactive and not just reactive support. Identifying the trending issues, that's something that will end up being quite a bit of a cost saver over time. You do not want to be the squeaky wheel in this case. It's not a positive in this sense. So that's something that the team will help identify for you. And again, with us, with our NOC, having the specific reporting that you will get will help show and identify which devices are the squeaky wheel, which applications are the squeaky wheel. One thing that we see from time to time, depending on the setups of your applications, you may have something that works perfectly fine when one user is on it. What happens when you have 8 or 9, 10, 20 users utilizing that application? Is it pooled resources that are being depleted? Do we need to add additional resources to that pool to be able to handle the amount of users that are pulling from that resource? All of those are things that you should be able to get from a proper NOC partnership.
And I just also, Joe, I just also want to allude to
Sure.
um, the 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 freeing up of your internal IT team if you do have them. in your firm. And you might have them working on projects that were scheduled and budgeted for 3 months, and then you might notice that 9 months later the project's still not done, the budget's overrun, we're just not getting to the point of completion. And having worked in an engineering background myself, the answer has always been, but I've been too busy doing this, or too busy
Sure.
making sure that the Windows are the Microsoft systems are patched, or too busy sorting out mailboxes. So instead of being having my 8 hours a day to work on this project and deliver it successfully, I've been fighting those fires. And where a knock has come in and taken that responsibility away, we've delivered better projects. And that's the enablement we want to give to internal technology teams at firms by giving or making this capability available to them.
No, very well said, and that's a great point, particularly for those of you with the internal IT teams. Now, as we move on, as we kind of start to wrap up, we do want to give you all a practical next step here. For most of you, I think the question is, do you already have the visibility you need to catch these issues that we're discussing today before they start impacting your users, before they start affecting your billable time, and just before they become noticeable, essentially. Obviously, in law firms, downtime is not just a tech issue. It's not just an IT issue. It becomes a productivity issue very quickly, and that becomes a billable time issue. At the end of the day, that is the crux of everything that we are talking about today: is how to protect your billable time. So, it's an important part of this. I will stress, though, not every disruption will look like a major outage. Sometimes it's going to be just slow applications, degraded performance, things like that. So as you are considering this, think about what applications might be buggy for you, or what is something that might be a bit of a time suck on your average day-to-day tasks, and things that can interrupt your flow of work. That's the type of things we would want to try to identify here. So that is why we are offering a free NOC consultation. It'll be a 30-minute conversation, and our team will essentially help you take a closer look at the current environment, identify disruptions, visibility gaps, things like that. So you'll see a pop-up on your screen here in just a second, if not already, that basically is offering up just a 30-minute consultation. So take a look at that. We'll leave it up for about a minute here, and then we'll move on. Also, if you have not already, if there's any questions you may have, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat there. And Afton, I know you're pulling whatever is in there right now for us to answer in a second.
Yeah, it looks like we have a few questions. So everyone go ahead and if you have any additional questions, go ahead and put them in the questions box or in the chat, and we'll put them up for Joe and Brendan here. So the first one we have is, we have IT support, but a lot of our issues are reactive. How do you know when you've outgrown basic support and need more proactive monitoring?
It's a great question. So a lot of it's going to depend on the specific issues that you're experiencing. If you're feeling like you've outgrown your current MSP or your partner, I would look at the issues that you're having on a day-to-day basis. If you asked your MSP what those issues, what do you think my top 3 issues are, my top 5 issues, would their answer be the same as yours? I think that's a pretty good way to figure out if they have a good gauge of what your core problems are, and also your core asks are. If the answers are quite different, or maybe too generic and not really well thought out, that may be a time to look at alternative partnerships. The other thing I would say there is, what are you getting out of the relationship? Are you consuming reporting that shows their value? If you're not, again, ask for it, see what they say. But these are the things that I would expect out of a good partnership with a strong NOC.
And I think also that question, it speaks to a lot of the evolution and the adoption of technology in the firm. Clearly, technology is becoming more and more pivotal, and what was initially scoped and understood needs to be looked at, and the NOC can help us identify those gaps and say, hey, look, this is where you are, this is where you need to be for what you're trying to do it. And that's one of the questions that this can answer.
Absolutely.
Great. Next question here. We don't have a lot of outages, but a lot of slow complaints. Is that something a NOC can help?
Yeah,
I'll take this
potentially.
one. Yeah,
Feel free, Brendan. Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things that the knock is going to take a look at is not just, the is it up or down? It's how is it performing and things like that. We're also going to take a look at, you know, whatever the systems tell us around response times. And we don't just marry that to what the systems are telling us. We also marry it to the type of tickets that we're getting in from the users, assuming that you use us as a help desk. We'll be able to go and marry those alerts to actual service requests that are coming in. And that becomes the pattern analysis that we start doing. And then we can start making those suggestions like, hey, this really needs a bit more resources, or hey, you're 90 users, we need to up your firewalls and up your internet. These are the sorts of decisions that a knock can help us identify, but we can marry those problems that the users are reporting, and to the actual alerts that we're seeing in the knock, and really pinpoint the problem from there.
It looks like that's all the questions. Did anyone else have a question here? Go ahead and put it in the chat. But if not, great presentation. Thank you guys so much for being here and presenting today.
Thank you,
No,
everyone. Appreciate the
absolutely.
time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. And obviously, if you do have any other questions, if you didn't get them in, just reach out to us. We're happy to connect and touch base and help kind of guide the next steps here for you. But yeah, thanks for having us today, and hope you guys all have a great rest of your day.
Excellent. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.